Well, welcome back to the second half of this evening's broadcast in conversation with myself, Inayat Wadi. And I must say, the first half really promised to be what we had expected with regard to the Zionist influence on the White House. And I'm sure looking at local politics, there's never a dull moment in the local political landscape as well. And what we are talking about this evening is the leadership, the new leadership under Gordon Hill Lewis, who was elected the new federal leader of the Democratic Alliance over the weekend. And we've seen some key names that have been named as part of the leadership. And this obviously has been described as a new, young, and diverse leadership with experience in government and legislative bodies. And they certainly have got certain goals in mind, and this is the reason why we have assembled another panel tonight as the DA has unveiled its new leadership structure. We have got with us Phapano Phasha, who is a political strategist and chairperson of KPET, and also Sandile Swana will be joining us, political analyst, consultant, academic, and also another familiar face on the airways of Salam Media, Kim Heller, South African political analyst, commentator, and author. And as we await our guests on screen, I'm sure this promises to be another interesting discussion considering where we are. I see Sandile has joined us as well. Kim, first of all, to you, good evening. Thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure.
Yes, and to you as well, Sandile. Always a pleasure having you. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you so much.
And Phapano, after all this time, many years back on the airwaves of Salam Media, thank you for your time as well.
It's always my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yes, Sandile, I'd like to actually begin with you. And obviously, just looking at the South African political landscape and close eyes, and we are in an election year, local government elections will be taking place, and political parties obviously will be gearing up to show their mettle. And the DA in particular have just had their conference. They've elected their new leadership and they have got a vision in mind. And just your thoughts overall on the leadership in change, and also in terms of what the DA, we've heard the speech from Gordon Hill Lewis as well, and what the DA can actually bring to the political landscape in the country.
Thank you so much. We have to accept, first of all, that I think it makes sense now for everybody to understand, all the political parties, including the DA, that it's cold outside the coalitions, or maybe stated in familiar language, it's cold outside the GNU. The politics of boycott are over. You'll remember that there are many instances where some of these political parties, whether it would have been the EFF, even the DA in some places, saying that they are not participating. So that era is over. So what is the DA thinking now, and what do they think they can achieve? I think there's a view among the supporters of the DA that is probably more ambitious than what Gordon Lewis is thinking. What the popular view is, which I think people like Helen articulate this view, and which is that the time now has come for the DA to take over the GNU and be above the ANC, and actually it must be a DA-led coalition that runs South Africa. Number two, within that, the DA needs to take over the city of Joburg. So it's a DA that is getting more ambitious. It tasted first blood, it tested blood in 2024, and they think they can actually just take the whole thing. Gordon Lewis says, guys, this is a very hard task. And I'm finding it amazing that people who say this is going to happen, they also admit that in the Eastern Cape, they control only one municipality. In Gauteng, they control Midval. So the platform from which they could launch total control of South Africa is actually quite a light platform, and it's almost unrealistic. And Jordan says to take over South Africa is going to be long. We can start moving in that direction, but we're unlikely to get there very quickly.
Thank you for that, Sandile. Tim, just responding to what Sandile had to say in terms of how ambitious the DA is, considering that, when one looks at the political landscape of South Africa at this point in time, we know, since democracy, the last 30 years, obviously has been no easy ride as well. And when we talk about when Sandile refers to the politics of boycott is over as well. Has the DA come to realize on a local, and we're going to be talking about foreign policy as well, but just looking at the local political landscape, has has the DA come to grips with the true reality of South Africa and what South Africa wants, and is this reflecting in their leadership?
Well, I think we're at a very interesting time of our political journey. I would like to just frame this discussion within the appalling decision made by President Cyril Ramaphosa on the ambassador, because it's relevant to this discussion, because what we have at the moment is a white domination, once again, of the political spectrum. And it's within the context that we have a Black president electing an apartheid minister as the ambassador to the United States, that it almost gives license for a party like the DA to gain more ground, because we are in the politics still of white supremacy. So I just wanted to frame my analysis within that. And the DA is trying very hard to be a multiracial, multicultural party, but it's not within its DNA. And one has to actually question whether the abandoning its white roots and its white leadership and its white ethos, culture, way of being, and strategy is actually going to benefit it. But the DA has done quite well, because as part of the GNU, it's almost been the motherboard of governance in South Africa, where I believe that the ANC has already surrendered to the DA. We see ongoing signs like that. So in a way, they pushing the buttons. They are at the forefront of governance, and we see, I think, the main focus, as we see with their leader swimming in sewage in Gauteng, is they're focusing a lot on Gauteng, a very important place to be in charge, obviously in the city of gold. And I think they might be quite successful there, because the ANC has fared just so awfully. But I do feel that we're in the midst of a white centrist neoliberal time in our trajectory, and we shouldn't be there. We should have been way past this.
Well, that's very, very clear. And Phapano, perhaps you'd just like to comment on what Kim had to say in terms of where we are and, where do we fit into this political landscape? Because it is clear that, obviously with your background and, you've come from within the ranks of the ANC. I see Phapano is actually just gone off. Actually, for some reason, we have lost Phapano. We hope that she will be able to join us. But perhaps, Sandile, you can obviously comment as well in terms of the ANC. Has the ANC become its worst own enemy to give the DA the ambitious? No, I see Phapano is back. Phapano, can you hear me?
Yes, clearly. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Sorry, Phapano, we lost you. I think just to follow up from what Kim was saying, and the point I was making is, obviously you've watched this political landscape, for a very, very long time. You've come from within the ranks of the ANC as well. And the question is, has the ANC become its worst own enemy for parties like the DA to jump onto the bandwagon, to be able to achieve its ambitions and its goals on a local political level?
No, thank you so much. I just wanted to start by saying that we must accept that the white minority in South Africa is extremely well disciplined, well organized, and well financed. And we are actually having the same conversation that we were having 10 years ago and 20 years ago, which is primarily, premised on ideology in the main. I think if you look at the conference, which just took place, the DA was able to deal with optics. One, the very fact that they've elected a very young leadership that has resonated with many South Africans. And second to that, it's quite evident that what the DA does quite well, which many political parties have failed to do, is to actually focus on scenario analysis and scenario planning. The reality is that in South Africa, you have a growing middle class, and Black middle class in particular. You've got millions of young graduates. Now, of course, we can speak about apartheid, we can speak about colonialism, but their key focus area is how do we get jobs? How do we maintain jobs? How do we keep our houses? So for me, any political party that can counter the DA or any other right-centered organization would really have to be focused and look at these factors that have sustained the Democratic Alliance. Because I honestly do not believe that it has assisted many of us who in the past, and speaking for myself, who have been in the left. Because what we have not managed to do is to organize and to ensure that the language that we speak of, for example, is meritocratic. And to also accept that the ANC itself is not the ANC, perhaps one could even say the ANC of the 40s, and not even the ANC of Mandela, of Nelson Mandela. So many people, for example, in Johannesburg, they are looking for change. Many people in Johannesburg are looking for service delivery. And of course, I heard Kim talking about Helen Zille in Dobsonville, swimming in sewage. I mean, Dobsonville, that's my home township. I was there last week and I could see the hopelessness and helplessness of our people, and the ANC has been in charge. Prior to local government, I was there in 2001 when I joined the organization. So for me, it's not necessarily about rhetoric that we should be concerned about, or ideologies. What needs to be done? And the DA at this moment is, a choice for many, the educated, the middle class, and professionals. It's seen as an option. It's seen as a sane organization amidst the noise. So for now, I would like to stop here, but all I'm saying is that there really seems to be no optional or viable organization that professionals in particular, that the middle class, that the educated and young people can look up to.
Yes, thank you for that, Phapano. But also, Sandile, when one looks at the DA and they talk about a youthful leadership that wants a political revolution, and it is clear that all political parties come with some baggage, and the DA has been viewed and seen by many with suspicion, with skepticism in terms of where the party stands, particularly on certain issues as well. And considering that this is not an easy time to live in South Africa, it's a difficult time. The economy, joblessness, service delivery that Phapano has been talking about, Kim has alluded to it as well. And all these factors actually put together as well. And a political revolution that the DA talks about, is it at all possible?
Yeah. Listening to this meeting, our discussion, I think we can take our jackets off and relax and just tell it like it is. The last election nationally was in 2024. So next month it will be, I think it was May. So next month it will be 2 years. The Congress movement, taken as a whole, walked away with 54%, with 64% of the vote, 40% in the ANC, and then the 14%, which would have taken you to about 55%, 40.18, ANC 14.58, Umkhonto weSizwe 9.52. So it takes you above 60%, closer to 64, 65%. That is a split of a unit of the Congress movement. So it tells you that the Congress movement, forget Ramaphosa, forget Malema, forget Zuma, the Congress movement as an idea still holds the largest amount of vote. So we need to be clear about that. So where I would take a point home from Phasha is that we are not organized. The left is not organized, it's disorganized. But the people are not disorganized. The people know what they want. And they are voting in the same way that they would have voted under Mandela. So the problem is leadership. Two, coming to just take one example. By the way, I can also make a disclosure here. I was born in Rockville. My home township is Rockville, Soweto. So, and I mean, I've lived non-stop in Johannesburg. I've not lived in any other city. Since 1988, I've been here. I mean, prior to that, I was disturbed by my studies traveling out of town. So the simple point that I want to make is that, by the way, the DA in the last local government election did not grow. It actually lost 32% of its vote. It actually went down by 1/3 of its vote. Now, again, what you are going to find as you analyze that, the people who've come up are the likes of Mashaba, EFF, and now we expect MKP to come up, and then the ANC. So the only issue you can raise here is not the takeover of the DA. The DA cannot take over the city of Joburg without the ANC. The faction, the Mavuso Msimans, the Snookers Zikalala, the ANC veterans are the ones who will facilitate that, to say to the ANC, join up with the DA. The DA on its own has got absolutely no capacity to take Joburg. So I think we need to be very careful that we must not be fooled by the hullabaloo of people swimming in potholes without actually studying the numbers in detail. So we are writing a report on this for all the top 12 largest towns in South Africa. Hopefully, by God's grace, next month we'll publish it. We're analyzing the numbers. I think that the draw of the DA is bigger than its bite. Thank you.
Kim, do you agree with that? The roar of the DA is bigger than his bite?
Well, very interesting points by both people on the panel. I think as I was saying previously, I think the DA actually exercises a lot of control because it has made the ANC submissive to it. So it almost has a greater influence than we may envisage and may appear to be the case. And we could well see a coalition between the ANC and the DA in the city of Johannesburg, because they've already are comfortable bedfellows, actually, as we see in the GNU. And that would be a very interesting combination. It would just be a sign of the DA's pressure and lever of control over a very, very poor and flagging ANC. I think the ANC is weaker now than it's ever been. So that that right centrist type or political party or alliance is very possible. I think it's very unfortunate because the ANC had an opportunity to work with black parties, and they stepped. They rejected that and chose a white party. And I think that is not good news for the country, Johannesburg, and the ideological framework that we are trying to pursue in what we call a democratic South Africa. But yet our ideology remains very fraught and problematic. So I anticipate actually the DA doing quite well. I think because of the failure of the ANC. And yeah, I don't think that would be good. I think that this country needs to move and use its political imagination to
Can I just
shift.
ask a question, if I may?
Yes,
On
please.
this question of the DA doing well, let's say, for instance, in the city of Joburg, it's the numbers. Like I told you, they've lost 32% in the last time. So if they are doing well, and I don't know how you measure doing well, I only measure in numbers. What numbers do you have in mind? If that's your way of analyzing things?
Yes. We'll come back to the numbers just now, Kim. But I just want Phapano to actually, I'd just like to get her view, because the point Phapano, Kim made is, the DA has made the ANC submissive, and just to understand the thinking and the rationale behind what Kim is actually saying. And also the other critical issue is in terms of alignment. Why has the ANC not aligned itself to the left, and it would rather go with a centrist party like the Democratic Alliance?
No, thank you so much. Of course, I listened to Sandile. He also spoke of the left, and Kim spoke of black parties, but they did not contextualize what this actually means. And I want to, profoundly differ with the assertion that there are left parties or black parties, or there are parties which have the interest of the working class and the poor, as well as the black majority. I think it's a fallacy. And I say this because I've had an opportunity to work with many of these parties at a policy level. And my concrete and factual analysis is that none of them have the interest of the working class, the poor, and black people in particular. That is why we do not have a black agenda or a working class agenda in South Africa. It's precisely of that reason that there is no singular political party which has the interest of our people at heart, except the smaller parties which have not managed, to gain ground. And one of those parties is WASP, for example. If I make an example, which is a Trotskyite organization which was formed by Marxist, what is called Marxist workers' tendencies of the ANC. These are the people who were expelled from the ANC in the 80s, and they've organized themselves. Of course, they've not managed to grow their membership. But I'm just making an example as it comes to people who, do not only speak of workers-orientated or left-orientated politics. They've also lived it throughout the years. But equally, the idea of black parties, this insinuation that black people are homogeneous, that there is some level, or in fact, we have sat down to agree on, the framework of what it means to be black, what are the black issues and so forth. And a typical example is the Western Cape, and the fact that the ANC in particular, for example, thought that with this agenda or narrative or Palestinian narrative, the Muslim community in the Western Cape will vote for them. It did not happen. So that is, a precise example that this idea that there is some level of homogeneous, perspective within our nation, in particular within the Black community, as I said, it's a fallacy, and that is why I would tend to, agree with Kim when she speaks of the DA and the possibility of the Democratic Alliance emerging as a power breaker, precisely because they have an agenda, and that this agenda is not new. This agenda has been historical, it's highly funded, and the people are quite clear on what it seeks to achieve. And lastly, just to speak to Sandile, I'm one of the people, I've led a branch since 2001, and I've managed to also lead my sub-region. And the last time when I resigned from the ANC in 2023, I was head of monitoring and evaluation for the ANC in Joburg region. And I can tell you now that, for one, the ANC in totality, there are no branches, there are no structures as it comes to the African National Congress. That's why if you look at the conferences and so forth, they always accuse each other of vote buying and so forth because there are no structures. So at a ward level, the ANC in particular is non-existent. And this does not only speak to the ANC. Many political parties are not on the ground. What you find is your NGOs, your civil society movements, and so forth. But if you were to go to what one considers Black constituencies, there's not much work that political parties are doing. And my biggest gripe, for the past, years, is that we don't go to our communities and we speak about mentoring, about coaching, about the attempt to solve the challenges of the people as it comes to drugs, as it comes to unemployment, unemployability, and so forth. We speak in our ivory towers, we speak about these ideologies. We do not speak of bread and butter issues that affect our people. And that is what makes us different to the Democratic Alliance, because their constituencies concerned about key issues, and that would be the economy, it would be about service delivery. So they manage to look at the core issues of their people using civil society movements, using different organizations, using AfriForum and so forth. So they are not only a political party, they've got an ecosystem in place, but we rely on political parties and we don't intervene in the lives of the people. So I think for me, that is the key challenge. And that is why the Democratic Alliance will eat into the base of the ANC. They will eat into, the middle class. They will eat into the disgruntled young people who are hopeless and helpless. And many of us are not there to intervene on core issues and core challenges that face our people on a daily basis.
Thank you for that, Phapano. But also, Sandile, I think as is the case with the DA and also with many other political parties, there is a thing called a trust deficit. And I think this is what many political parties are actually faced with as well. People are not trusting of political parties. And you speak of numbers, and the numbers speak for themselves. And we've been following election after election, whether we're looking at local and national government elections. We find less people voting. We find less people registering to vote. And this is as a result of this trust deficit. And the DA obviously faces this trust deficit as well. There is a section of the population, Black voters, that the DA doesn't appeal to. It doesn't appeal to voters who identify with humanitarian causes like the Palestinian cause as well, where we know the DA has made certain positions. Helen Ziller herself made a statement that there is no genocide that is taking place in Palestine, and people take notice of these things as well. So the key issue here is it's a mixture of the local political dynamics and also the global political landscape in terms of the DA and its position as far as foreign policy is concerned.
I just want to just say this before I go to you see, there's the general discussion. I live in a DA ward, and I've lived in a DA ward since 1995. And I live in a DA ward now. So these glorious expressions about the DA, I don't subscribe to them. from hands-on experience, my ward councillor is a DA member. She's a friend of mine. We've worked together in the community, but I'm not voting for her again this time. And the one before that actually was just a complete useless sellout. And then Solim Simanga is totally useless. And I've dealt with them directly with issues here. So from a hands-on practical experience, I don't have a very glorious experience of the DA, but that's not my point. Now, if you look at the actual results, the last results that were there from the city of Joburg in the last local government election, right? If you put Action SA and the ANC in terms of their last results, that's 50%. You add the economic freedom fighters to that, you actually have 60%. Those are the hard numbers. And the DA is not going to beat those numbers. They can win the flowery stuff. They are not going to beat those numbers. The only way they can get power, and I must make this clear, is through by capturing the ANC and the ANC going with them. And currently in Gauteng, with what Panyaza Lesufi is doing, he has excluded, since 2024, he has excluded the DA successfully, physically excluded from the executive. So we must not think that it is impossible to exclude the DA. It has already been physically excluded. And the steps that have already been taken by Panyaza Lesufi up until now, including partnering with the EFF, regardless of the protests that are out there, if MK comes on board, then Helen Zille can swim in as many on a daily basis in those potholes. She's not going to get anything, regardless of how she does with the votes, because we know that the votes don't give you anything. MK did that. They won a lot of votes in KZN, and they got nothing. So we need to be there. But I want to say that these are very difficult periods of time because political education is very shallow in South Africa today. But let me then make this point. We cannot run away from the fact, as I quoted before, I was not talking about people where they are black conscious or they are conscious of being black and uniform. If you just add up the numbers that the MKP got nationally, you add to the ANC, you add to the EFF, that is the block that physically came out of the ANC. And to me, that block is still holding. Had they not split up, they're still holding. And their politics are not good, their administration is not good, but they're getting the votes. And we cannot run away from the actual numbers. So the way that the power is then seized is corruption. It's bribery and corruption. I mean, my view of the GNU is a construction of big business, right? The ANC went in there, pushed by the Mavusos, the Snookies, and whoever else, and whatever else they got out of the whole thing. But it has nothing to do with the common people. The common people actually voted for the Congress tradition. That is all that I can say. And I don't think that it is futile for the ANC and those who are supporting the ANC to embark on the leadership of the Global South. Among the intelligentsia, those are important struggles. I believe that our foreign policy is probably the best unit that we have in South Africa today in terms of achieving results. The work we're doing with Iran, the work we're doing with the people of Palestine, and so on, the leadership of the Global South, and so on and so forth. That work is there. But our astuteness strategically, politically, is actually showing. I mean, I am not quite confident that Ramaphosa has got the full gumption, just as a person, to deal with Trump decisively. And those are issues of weakness that have come in. But we must not attribute the weakness of the type of leaders that are there who are not leading, who are not doing their job, the administrators who are not doing their job, to a weakness of the people, the ordinary masses. The ordinary masses are currently being victimized by the situation.
Yes.
But
I think, Sandile raises some very, very interesting points. And I'd like to focus a bit on the whole question surrounding foreign policy as well, because it is clear that South Africa has got ambitions as far as BRICS is concerned, as far as the global South is concerned. And when one looks at the global political landscape, that divide is clear. It's clear as daylight. The global North versus the global South. We see what is taking place in Iran at this point in time, what has taken place in Palestine, and we're starting to see a lot of cracks in the relationship that many European countries are having with the United States. And this is the reason why he hasn't been getting support from many of these countries in Europe as well. So with these global changing dynamics that are playing out again, is the DA leadership geared or to manage, a global policy, particularly when it comes to leadership, particularly when we know that the DA historically has always been subject to what is termed as a pervasive Zionist lobby in this country as well. And I know how strongly you feel about this as well. So again, if the DA wants to appeal to the voters in South Africa, there's a lot more than just service delivery or swimming in a pothole that the DA needs to think about.
Yes, well, I think it would be a disaster if there was the DA foreign policy inflicted upon South Africans, because they're standing very proudly with a genocidal state, as we all know, and that should never be forgiven. And I really would love voters to punish them dearly at the polls. And this whole new construct, a whole new world being presented to us through the global South, should be the path that we are going down. And of course, that is not the way that Helen Zille and her boys would go. They are fierce supporters of the American imperialism and the Zionist entity. And that's awful. I think that they've already influenced Southern foreign policy, which goes to my earlier point that the DA doesn't even need to win at the polls. It's winning within the infrastructure. I think, as Phapano pointed out, it's got nodes of influence, not only in the GNU, but across society. If we look at the media, who are applauding the DA all the time, they're very, very powerful. It's almost like they don't even need to be that powerful amongst voters. They control the levers of our society, and that's unfortunate. But I believe they've shifted our foreign policy, because we think we've done well with Palestine, and of course the ICJ decision and court case was critical. No one who believes in justice could be against that decision. But the very unfortunate thing is that South Africa is still supplying coal to apartheid Israel, and we have to ask why. And it relates to a point, if I may just pick up a point that Phapano made very well, is that the government isn't really serving the people, because it speaks of, in rhetoric, about the struggles of the working class. It speaks rhetorically about Palestine and the people of Iran, but it's still trading with Israel. What does that mean? What we will see under a greater DA influence is an erosion of our relationship with the global South and with the people across the world who are facing genocide, imperialism, colonial settlement, and land evasion. So we should all pray that the DA does not come into power. But just if I may, one more moment is replying to a comment that Sandile made. It's all very well to have numbers, but the thing is that we've seen a shift in public perceptions. As you well said, the trust deficit is high. I believe we're going to see patterns in this upcoming election that are going to surprise us all. I think there are shifting sands of political influence and support right now. We're going to be surprised.
Thank you for that, Kim. Phapano, the threat that Kim actually speaks about, and particularly when one looks at the DA in terms of its foreign policy and the damage it could do to South Africa, it could do to South Africa standing in the global community, particularly in the global South. I think it's a real threat, and it is something that we need to think about and talk about very seriously. But also at the same time, where the other danger, and I know, Phapano, you've been talking about this for a very, very long time, where you speak about black monopoly capital and you speak about white monopoly capital as well. And these two coming together in this country. We see what has taken place in the United States of America, the MAGA movement, Make America Great Again. Nothing has been done for the people in America. In fact, they're actually worse off under Trump in the second term. But it's a billionaire class that are actually benefiting from whatever Trump's policies are, whether we're talking about tariffs, whether we're talking about the war in Iran, whether we're talking about Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, you name it. At the end of the day, it is that billionaire class. And what is that threat? You know, where you're looking at South Africa and looking at our billionaire class, for example, and a combination of black monopoly capital and white monopoly capital coming together, while the rest of the country will still stay in the doldrums, and we won't see any progress.
No, thank you so much, and thank you as well to my fellow panelists in terms of the views that they've raised. I just want to start by saying that any political party in South Africa, be it the ANC, the GNU, will be guided by the framework of our international relations, and that framework is national interest. So the ANC can have a position, the EFF and all other political parties, but what will guide these political parties will be, our national interests, unless that changes. And we've seen it throughout the years from 1994. This morning, earlier this morning, I was stating, I was being interviewed, and they asked us the question about Rolf Meyer being appointed. And I had to indicate that, prior to this appointment by President Ramaphosa, the then Minister of Defense, with President Zuma, had appointed Rolf Meyer in 2011 to head what was then called the Defense Review Committee, and that was 2011. And what you would have seen as well is that government itself would have always taken what they call a non-aligned posture. Now, I will respond to what you just asked me, but I just want to speak to this idea of the global South and, speak to, qualitative facts. If you, for example, you look at the BRICS plus nation, I can tell you without batting an eye that the majority of countries, they do not align, and it's just unfortunate. But be it your Saudi Arabia, be it India, Russia itself, they do not align with the posture that has been taken by Iran. And I just want to make an example. Just after the Iran US-Israeli war started, President Trump lifted sanctions on Russia. That is why, as we speak now, Iran, the US, Russia, and China have made profits from this war. So I just wanted to to highlight this point, to say that our perspective on international relations must also be guided in terms of what is practically happening, especially within BRICS. If you look at China, China has not been to war in the past 40 years. But they work closely. They work closely with the Biden regime. And of course, now that they continue to work with the US. And if you note, the biggest American gigabytes factories, they're in China. So I'm just saying that I just wanted to speak to to the practicality of that. I just also wanted to speak to the negotiations that have been taking place, especially within the confines of the Arab League. When the Arab League, the 22 or 23 Arab League countries meet, as they have been meeting to talk about Palestine, including Western Sahara, they do not include South Africa. So I think when we have these discussions, we must also align ourselves to practicalities that are taking place. And my view is that the issue of Palestine will be resolved. It will soon be resolved. I do not know when, but it will soon be resolved. And it will likely be resolved through negotiations, and that is what's going to happen. Because we can make noise, but the reality is that this war, for example, is going to end, and all this, countries are going to go to the negotiation table and agree. But just to finish this point, the third indictment is that as Iran, Israel, and the US battle it out and profit from the oil, African countries are now struggling, and they've got a crisis of food shortages. So, of course, it's a discussion for another day. But the reality is that these four powers in particular that I mentioned initially, they've profited from this war, whilst the people of Palestine continue to suffer, and Africans. Now, as it comes to your white monopoly capital or your black monopoly capital, they will always be influential because money makes decisions. And until all progressive forces are able to come together, then we will not see any substantive change in terms of decision making. That's where I agree with Kim when she speaks about the DA, because we are not glorifying the DA in any way, but we are being practical in terms of the influence that they have in politics and in the socio-economic strata. So I just wanted to raise those points, because that's where we are heading to. That's why Rolf Meyer was appointed to the United States. So unfortunately, our discussion, for me, they have not necessarily taken into consideration that politics is about influence. That's why even the issue of Palestine has not impacted on the voting decisions of South Africans. And we saw it, as I said, in the Western Cape. And we see it here in Johannesburg in terms of the voting patterns. And in particular, of the Muslim community, they vote for the DA. It then tells you that issues of service delivery supersede what we think is important. So how do we reposition this conversation? Thank you.
Well, I think we're going to have a lot more of these conversations in the build-up to the local government elections, and I'm sure a lot of this will be discussed in detail. But we have got about 3 minutes, and I'm going to go around. Sandile, starting with you, a minute, just some final thoughts, and then we'll get to Kim, and we'll ask Phapano to basically wrap up.
To the extent that this panel was about the DA, I think that the DA is still far from actually getting on the ground support. And I'll just mention the following points. If we leave out the Western Cape, in each one of these provinces, the DA controls just one municipality. Gauteng, one, Midvaal. KwaZulu-Natal, Umgeni. Eastern Cape, Kruger. And I know the Eastern Cape well. They are not going to control a lot of municipalities there in the near term. The same goes in KZN. In KZN, the DA has got a bigger butt than it has got teeth. Here, it's up to Lusufi to close them out. I think that, listening to Helen Zille 3 weeks ago, I was on a panel with her, saying that they had 3 by-elections in Randburg, in DA strongholds. The turnout was 18%, and the DA won by 80%, around 80% per ward. But the turnout itself, is that the DA members are not as active as people claim to be. She was complaining about that the DA members are not getting up and going to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim?
That's very interesting. Well, I've said publicly that I'm going to move out of Johannesburg if the DA comes into power. So I might be looking for a new home, but I don't. Well, I hope not. But we get the government we deserve, and I hope that the voters out there don't vote for the DA. I firmly believe that the oxygen of the DA is white privilege and supremacy, and shame on people who support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Phapano.
Thank you. Well, I believe that Black parties have become, the biggest enemies to the Black voter. So until, as Black people, we get our act right, of course, as Kim said, we'll get the leadership that we deserve. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Phapano Phasha, Sandile Swana, and also Kim Heller. We thank you. We do appreciate you for taking time out with us right here on Salam Media. I'm sure this is not the last we'll hear from you. There's a lot that's going to happen from now right until the local government elections. So I'm sure we'll be calling on you from time to time. But for now, all the best to all three of you. Please take care. Well, that brings us to the end of this evening's edition of In Conversation with myself, Inayat Wadi. And as I mentioned, Salam Media will be at the forefront of the build-up to the elections. We know at this point in time, it's still in the infancy stage. And I know that the appeal is out there for people to go in and register to vote, because we know that registration levels have been very, very low of late in the last couple of years, particularly among the younger generation, who just refuse for some reason or the other to actually register to vote. And ultimately, as Sandile mentioned, 18% of people that voted, and the DA got in 80%. And that statistic alone should give us some food for thought as well. But like I mentioned, we'll be back. There'll be a lot more discussion taking place in the build-up to the elections. But for now, from myself and the team here at Salam Media, it's been an absolute pleasure. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.